Alright, Wired Up Retro is back, and today we're going to be featuring a game on the Atari 5200 called Tempest. Tempest was originally started in the early 80s. They began the programming then, but it never really got completed. It was just a prototype that really you couldn't even shoot the enemies on the screen. So, it stayed that way as a prototype for many, many years. And then around 2012, a very talented programmer who associates with Atari Age did a fantastic job of basically making a raster graphics version of Tempest and making it fully playable with all the same exact sound effects that you would find in the arcade game Tempest. One nice thing about the 5200 is that it has analog controllers. These controllers, when playing this game, will allow your little shooter to be going either slowly, or if you push the stick all the way to the far right or left, it'll scoot around there a whole lot faster. So you can actually control the speed of which your little guy is shooting down the tubes. So it really is a nice controller for this particular kind of game. Although, there are many kinds of controllers that could maybe be even better, such as, you would think maybe a paddle controller or a spinner. The arcade actually had a spinner controller to control your guy. So, on my last episode, I was experimenting with the Atari 5200, and I managed to find a couple of games that my little mouse and the spinner mouse with the fidget spinner add-on could work well with, or at least pretty well with. Beam Rider being one of those games, and River Raid. I was trying Dreadnought Factor, and I ran into some snags there trying to play the game. It was going up on the screen a little bit extra quick. One thing I did find out, though, is that with the keyboard, if you press down while using your mouse to position the ship, when you press down, the ship no longer scoots forward really fast. So you could actually tap that down that down key on the keyboard and control your ship and make it just go left and right and just really cover the screen with bullets and bombs, and it works out pretty well. So, you can actually use that mouse effectively on a few 5200 games. And of course, the big question mark is, will the fidget spinner mouse with the spinner on it actually work for this game? And it does have some semblance of control. You can see that there. Let's start out at the beginning, and I'll just show you what happens with the fidget spinner mouse. It's going so quick. Now you can fire. It's going so quick that it's just hard to control. There's no dead zone really. You can change directions, but yeah, if you pour bullets down the tube, I think I've made it to level 3 this way before. This time I didn't make it to level 3, obviously, but it's just too fast of movement with this kind of PS/2 mouse. Using all those adapters. If you want to watch last episode, it'll explain how I hooked this up. So yeah, this it definitely isn't going to work well for Tempest. So let's talk about some of the other controllers. I'm going to go ahead and plug in a different controller that might be kind of interesting for us to take a look at. Alright, so what we have here is the Ultra Racer PC. This is basically a steering controller. It's a paddle. It's kind of got limited throw, but in the game Tempest you can move it a little and the guy goes slow but faster when you get all the way to the one side. But since it's kind of a limited throw, it's really sensitive in this game. But yeah, it's got all the buttons you need. You're going to be able to super zap and also fire with the Ultra Racer PC. And this is a 15-pin connector. It will work with an Atari Age member Bohoki's adapter. It's B-O-H-O-K-I. And you can reach out to him if you're interested in having him make a PC game port 15-pin to Atari 5200 15-pin controller adapter. He does a great job. Let me put this away over here. I also wanted to mention that you could also use one of these joysticks. Again, the further over you move the joystick, the more turning you get in the game. This is a quick shot. Kind of looks like something you might find for a Genesis, but it is fully analog. It's designed for the PC, and it's a 15-pin connector. These are paddles for the Atari 2600, and one plugged into this Master Play clone. Made by, again, an Atari Age member who goes by the name Atari Guy 1021. Plugs into here, and you click this over to this side. And by flicking the switch, you turn it into paddle mode. The paddles, you have to actually get inside and do a little switcheroo of 2 wires. It's actually a real easy little mod that you have to do in order to get this to work effectively on your Atari 5200. But once it's done, you've got yourself a paddle and a single button. Unfortunately for the game Tempest, you are going to need to have a second button to do Super Zapper. So this really isn't an effective means to play Tempest on your Atari 5200. Now, in a future episode, I am going to show a method that allows you to get a second button using Atari paddles, using also a Wiko Duo cable. So anyway, in the future, I'll be showing that. All right. Now, I want to just jump forward here to talk about the best controller to play Tempest with. And that controller that I want to show you is the Atari 5200 Trakball. This requires specific programming in order to get the trackball to respond, and so the programmer made sure that that was included in the game, and it really paid off very well. This is similar to an actual spinner controller in an arcade version of Tempest. And when I say similar, it's, you know, it's not this type of movement that you're doing where you spin it and the flywheel moves the spinner, but it's basically just a rolling action left or right that you're going to implement. All right, so you know, let's just show you a little example of it, of how I can control the game. Oops. Yeah, I'm really good. Super zap it. All right. So you get the idea, you know, it stops on a dime, it's very analog, it can go slow, it can go fast, spinning around the entire square there. It's a whole lot of fun. So yeah, very cool. So, you know, again, there's a lot of different kinds of controllers that would be, you know, effective to play this game if you get used to each type. The one that you adapt to most quickly, though, is the trackball, and the one that really seems most accurate is the trackball. It's better than any joystick. It's better than any paddle type controller that's available on the 5200 so far. Now, a thought came to me, and that is maybe I could make some sort of rotary controller out of the trackball and make it so that it's reversible and not a permanent type change. Now, here's the fact of the matter. I own actually 2 of these trackballs for my 5200. And what's interesting is the first one I bought, right when I first bought it, this is probably like 6-7 years ago, I plugged it in and I realized it had a problem. It wouldn't go up. It only goes down, left, and right. And I thought to myself, well, I can either, you know, spend the big bucks and find somebody who can repair it, or maybe I could repair it if I could figure out what resistor or what capacitor or what transistor is needing to be replaced, or who knows. I just don't know how to fix it. But, you know, then I thought, well, maybe I could just use it on games that are left to right games. Let me touch on what games those are. Obviously, Tempest would be a good example of that. Another good example that's trackball compatible is the game Galaxian for the 5200. It's a nice analog control game with the trackball. Pole position can also be controlled left and right, obviously, if you're driving. Super Breakout, obviously, you're on the paddle going left and right. This is a whole lot of fun with a, you know, a paddle type controller. Space Invaders is a good trackball control game. Again, if it was converted to be a rotary controller, that would be pretty sweet. So let me just switch this over to my Atari Jaguar, and I'll give you a quick example of a Tempest game with a rotary controller. Turn that up. So I've got this rotary controller, and I actually obtained this through a friend, or actually a guy I just met at Atari Age through the marketplace. He became a good friend rather quickly when he sold it to me for under $50. So I was like, yeah, thumbs up. So it was used. It totally works fantastically to play Tempest 2000 on the Jaguar. I don't think I've ever had my Jaguar out on Wired Up Retro, so, you know, it's the premiere Jaguar episode. Now this is made for a lefty, so you're going to have to use the left hand for this kind of controller. They made these so that you could actually use your right hand. There's a different model that does that, and where they put the spinner, or it's actually a rotary paddle. It's not really a spinner. It doesn't, it does move fast, but unfortunately, it doesn't have a flywheel type action to it. I'm actually kind of good at the Jaguar game Tempest until some of the later levels where I get stuck. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It really is. I like this with the rotary controller. All right, you get the idea. But yeah, the one that's got the paddle on the back, I think, is mounted here, and you would just press buttons here while manipulating your rotary. So anyways, yeah, it's not a spinner, but it is a rotary controller, and it works very, very well. So that's what I'm after, to make on the 5200 not a spinner, but a rotary controller. All right, so let me show you a little bit about my preliminary attempt to make one of these. And I'll be attempting to make an even better one during the episode, okay? So, all right, this game is addictive. Oh, yeah. All right, so there's my fully working trackball. And then we have trackball number 2, the left and right moving trackball, which I've modified with a rotary spinning dial, okay? And I just used a wooden template, which I adhered this printout from the internet. This one will be enhanced later. You'll get to see that at the end of the video. So, again, version 1 and version 2. So it works out pretty nicely. We've got ourselves an Atari situation here, about ready to take off. And you too are going to get to be able to figure out how to do this. Let me show you some footage real quick with my initial prototype. All right, so what we have here on display are all the materials, all the tools you need, and some adhesive, as well as cans of paint or bottles of paint. So really the most important aspect of all of this is the materials that actually physically are going to be put into the trackball. And I will just reiterate, there's no drilling into the trackball, there's no adhesive like glue going to be put into the trackball anywhere, okay? In fact, we're using Loctite Fun Tack on a number of different things, although there may be some chances to use actual glue on the device you're putting inside, but that won't be glued into it. It's just going to be glued as a part of the device that you're adding to this. But yeah, there's really no changing of the trackball into a situation where the trackball can't be brought back to its normal state.